Hello guys. Right, so I was asked by a couple of people yesterday at the event, because there's a few people there who are on Dracotail who didn't do quite as well as me. I think I was the only Dracotail player who topped. And I could be wrong about that. I actually don't know everyone on the list who topped. A few people asked me, like, what are my thoughts on the deck? What are my thoughts on, certain plays? What you should do with the side deck, actually, what have you. And I had a couple of people ask me for, like, sort of Dracotail test hands and combo videos and whatnot. So I'll do a quick one of these. I'll preface this before I go in. I am in no way an expert on this deck or at this game. Thirsty. I'm in no way an expert at this deck or at this game. I did well at the event yesterday, because I like to think of myself as a fairly consistent player. I'm going to switch to this now just quickly, because something I do want to say. I've had a lot of people ask me about my thoughts on a hybrid deck. Dracotail Shaddoll, Dracotail Canine, Dracotail Fiendsmith, Dracotail Branded, all of these sorts of decks. Now, I'll say this, if you want to play those decks, you do it. If you are excited about a deck, if you are into it, if you're like, yes, this is it, by all means do it. Personally, for me, if I can play a pure variant of a deck to a decent level, I would prefer to do that. Because if you mesh together different archetypes, you are different engines in different decks, you are also taking the bricks of those engines, because all engines have bricks. It's just a fact of life. It's a fact of this game. Every engine you play in this deck will have at least one card that is a brick. A bare minimum one card. And the more engines you play, the more bricks you play. If I can get away with only using one engine in a deck, I will, because I think it makes the deck more consistent, and it's just my personal preference on that. But if you want to play something, if you want to play Shaddoll, if you want to play Branded, if you want to play Dracotail Goblin Bikers, far be it from me to tell you no. Maybe on that last one I would tell you no, because that would be insane. But hey, you do you, boo. You do you. But yeah, so this is my thoughts on what a pure list should be, which I've already showed you the list the other day. But yeah, I'm going to do a couple of test hands. You know, I'll preface here, I'm by no means an expert. I know players better than me. I know a couple of people who go to locals every week who do better than me. I know I know a lot of people do better than me. I did well yesterday. I've topped one event ever, Does not make me an expert, but people have asked me for test hands, so I'm going to show off some test hands and show what I would do. Now, this is a fairly consistent build for the deck. I've not really had many consistency issues with this. I don't brick often, but even if I do brick, I'm going to see how I can play with that brick hand. I'll see what I can do. This is not a bad hand, actually. This is not a bad hand. So the only issue I see with this hand is that you are fusion locked no matter which way you play. Both Rahu and Malulu do fusion lock you, so it's not an ideal hand, obviously, but it's not awful. There's things to use in your opponent's turn and whatnot, but I think what I would do here, I'll start with Malulu, and I'll use the effect to fuse with itself and Monster in hand to go with an Arthalion. You are now fusion locked, so you cannot go with your link plays, your synchro plays, Ixies, anything. You are now fusion locked is the only thing. I'd add this back to hand, and I would, I'd set Key2 from deck. Set the Key2 from deck. I'm also, obviously, I'm assuming that there is, with these hands and test hands, I'm assuming no interruption. This is just what I would do in an ideal situation, obviously. I'd do the Key2. I would search for the Phimena. Already normal summoned, obviously, so there's no point in going for the Lucius here. And then I go, see, I can use the Phimena to fuse here. Don't know that I need to. I can do that. But I go the Rahu. I think if I were to get Ash on the Rahu, I would do that. But obviously I haven't been Ash on the Rahu, so there'd be no need to do that. But yeah, use a Rahu, and I'm going to go with the Urgula. Hence why I only roll one, because I like to be able to search it out and go, do that with it instead. I just prefer it that way. So go with Urgula. Summon the Gulamel. Get the Urgula and Phimena effect from being used as fusion materials, and set the traps from deck. Boom, boom. They were next to each other. How lovely. Horn and Flame. And then I would use Urgula's effect to add Phimena back to hand and put itself on the bottom of the deck. So, ending your turn with, I guess, in terms of engine, you've got a lot here, but I was doing test hand. This is one, so I got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, draw 2 cards, 8. You're getting 8 forms of interruption with this setup here. if you obviously, if this is with the assumption that nothing goes wrong, all goes off without a hitch, and you just play perfectly, obviously. So that's with that assumption. Yeah, and that was not an ideal hand, because you obviously want to be able to go into your link plays, you want to be able to go in your synchro plays, whatever you want to do, but with that hand you simply couldn't do that. But even so, without that, just purely running just the engine of the deck, hence why I think, there's enough in the Dracotail toolbox that you don't necessarily need to incorporate other things. And my cat's meowing at me for some reason. What do you want, Baba? What do you want, my baby girl? What is happening? What have I done? Have I harmed you in some way? I would never. I love you so much. She's very fluffy. She meows at me when I'm talking to someone, which including you guys, because she's like, but what about me? You're not paying attention to me? Because she's a funny, fluffy cat. Anyway, let's go with another test hand. Let's have a look here. Another hand which I guess I can play here without getting fusion locked, actually, because I have the 5 mana. Let's have a look, see. How would I play this? How would I play this? I'm trying to think if there is a line here in which I can go for the... Is there a way of doing it with this hand? I think there is. I think I can. I think I can do it. Just any kind of link play. Let's go with the 5 mana. Fusing... So, you kind of obviously want to keep the Nibiru. You can fuse with the Nibiru, but you don't want your opponents to know you've got Nibiru, because then they start playing around it, and you don't want that. So you probably fuse with these two in your hand, and some of the Arthalion. Arthalion to target the... What do I prefer in hand? I think I prefer to have the destruction than the negation during the opponent's turn, so I think I'd add these two back to hand. In general, obviously it depends what you're playing against, but this is game 1 going first, so, and I would set the key 2 and a trap from deck. No, you're not fusion locked yet, it's worth noting. So go for the key 2. I'm going to search out the Lucius. There's our boy. You're going to summon the Lucius, get the search. You can get another Malulu here, actually. That's a point, so you don't need to worry about, whatever you've sent to the graveyard, you can just keep the other one in hand, obviously. You get another Malulu here. And then we go into our link play. So obviously, the optimal, if you don't care about Nibiru, is you go Spirit, and then you link for Seal. That's optimal. Didn't do that yesterday, like I said, but, we'll go with the Rahu. At this point, we'll grab the Urgula, and we're going to fuse with the 5 mana because we've not used 5 mana's effect yet, so we can, want to fuse with that. Also, we want it in graveyard for this next bit, so we're going to go with the Gulamel. Now, we do have a trap set already, so I think I would only use one of their effects just to set the trap. I could set the key to, however, I think I would leave that, because at the end of the day, if they, for example, Harpies Ashed and stop, Harpies and then Ash to stop the flame, you're not in a good spot at that point. And you're losing the key to, you're losing your follow-up and whatnot, because you can set a key to during the opponent's turn. You don't need to set one now. You're just putting your resource at danger by doing that. And then you would get the 5 mana back with Urgula's effect by putting it on the bottom of the deck. And there you go. So again, this is really solid, actually. So you've gone into what I would say is maybe not the optimal hand, but not bad, obviously. You know what? I say not optimal. This is full combo, so I don't know what I'm on about. I made it work. I made it work. So you've got 1, 2, 3 into 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. You've got so much, like, draw 2 cards as well. Not really a lot there, but still. You've got so much interruption, so much interaction here. That's going to be a really difficult field to break through. That's really good, I said not optimal, but that was pretty optimal, actually. I'm not going to lie, that was pretty good. Because that was full combo. That was full combo, baby. Yeah. The full combo with this deck is such a hard field to actually break through, because you just play a lot, and it has a lot of recursion. It also has a very fun thing with this deck that feels a little bit like Mitsurugi, in that you can chain block a lot with this deck. So obviously you're going to summon like one thing, and that will net you Arthalion plus 1, 2, 3 effects in graveyard. Most of the effects you've activated, your opponent is not going to be able to interact with. They can stop the last thing, and then if they have Imperm, the Arthalion. You're going to get 1 or 2 things that actually pop off during that. You get a lot of advantage because it's just a lot of stuff your opponent simply has no way of interacting with, and that is the strength of this deck, is the chain blocking and the sequencing of like where you place things along the chain. There are some occasions where you are not concerned about an Imperm or a Veiler or what have you, where you actually want to put Arthalion last in the chain. For example, if you're against an opponent who's got an Izuna, like a Ripper, on the field, you don't want them to be able to stop the things that happen in graveyard. So you put Arthalion at the end of the chain, because all they're going to be able to do to that is Ghost Ogre if they have one in hand. If it's their turn, I should say, they can't Imperm it and they can't Veiler it. So you don't want to bother with that. You just want to leave that at like, the end of the chain, because you don't really care about protecting it, you know? At that point, you'd rather use it to protect your things in graveyard. Let's go for one more test hand, and then I think we'll call it there for the day. This is not a bad hand. This is by no means a bad hand. Yeah, this is pretty good. Obviously, the Morcharm is not ideal, but it's not really that big of a deal. So you go for the Kitu, and we're going to grab the Lucius here. Summon Lucius and go for the 5 mana. Activate 5 mana, fusing with the Pan and the Fua to summon Arthalion. Arthalion targeting Pan and 5 mana. Pan effect in graveyard. Gonna go for a Rahu from deck. Yeah, this is basically an ideal hand, actually. Lucius or Kitu plus any Dracotail name in hand, and monsters, obviously, you need to use. But yeah, that's just full combo. Now, at this point, it depends. If you want to play under Nib, you would just go for SP here with these two. Again, I'm assuming that this is just the ideal scenario where nothing's going to go wrong. You go for Spirit instead, and then Spirit and Arthalion for Seal instead. This is just the ideal starting thing, right? And then Rahu. Again, you know what's going on here, because you go Rahu for Urgula in the deck. Branded Fusion, baby. With the 5 mana. Fusing into the Urgula. Set the 2 traps from deck. Bush. And then use the Urgula effect to add 5 mana back to hand and put itself back in the deck, which is always nice to be able to, you know, recur itself and whatnot. And again, there you go. So during your opponent's turn, you've got 1 into 2. Actually, 2 into 3, I should say. 1, 2, 3, because this gets you 1, bounce, 2, Malulu, 3, Malulu's fusion effect in graveyard to not use for fusion material effect. You can consider that like 3 interruptions from 1 card. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Drawing 2 cards as well. 11. Cool. It's a very strong. You get a lot. The fields don't look particularly impressive, but they net you a lot of advantage. And then on top of that, even, you're going to be going fly. It depends what you fuse into with 5 mana, because you're not locked into the Dracotail stuff. You can go with Secretarion and just floodgate your opponent. You can go with Mysterion and just get rid of all of your opponent's Malice and Yummy cards. Like, you have that flexibility to be able to look at different things in your extra deck and go, actually, I need that this turn, and go from there. So it has a lot of different stuff it can do off of just 1 or 2 cards, you know? There are no, like, 1-card combos in this deck, because you need to have the, you know, the requisite hands to be able to do things with. You need at least, like, a card plus, so there's, like, 1.5 card combos. There's not really any 1-card combos, but that's fine, because obviously you build the deck in such a way that you hopefully are able to consistently get to the same end fields, obviously. And that's the deck. That's the test hands. Hope that was helpful. I hope that you guys can now see the strength of this deck, and also most likely the fact that I probably just cheesed all my wins yesterday, because as you can see, I'm by no means the most competent player in the world. But I play for fun, you know? I play for fun, and I'll have a good time with it. So yeah, hope you enjoyed the video, guys. leave a like, let me know what your thoughts are. If you have any thoughts on if you think actually I could have sequenced things better and done things in a different way, by all means let me know. I'd love to hear that, or what I was looking to improve. And yeah, I will see you guys another time. Take care. Much love. Bye-bye.